9-year-old boy accused of intentionally setting a deadly home fire in Illinois. Kyle Alwood is charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder.
Katie Alwood admits her 9-year-old son Kyle had a problem with starting fires, but she says he made a mistake when he set their home ablaze in April, killing 5 relatives.
I don't know what's worse, hearing him scream or when it stopped.
Kyle Alwood was like any other 9-year-old boy, curious, playful, and a mama's boy. But he had one problem. He liked starting fires. His mother, Katie Alwood, began monitoring him strictly and fireproofed her house in anticipation of an accident. But despite maintaining caution, the unthinkable happened on a fateful day in April 2019. Kyle lit a fatal fire that ended up taking 5 precious lives. Katie made it out with her son, but had to watch with teary eyes and a broken heart as her world burned down before her eyes. What happened on that day? How did a 9-year-old boy manage to light an entire mobile home on fire? Was it truly an accident or a homicide? What happened to Kyle afterward? And how did Katie cope with the loss of her family? Stay tuned as we answer these questions and uncover more important information related to this one-of-a-kind case in this video. This is the story of the 9-year-old boy who took the lives of his family. Katie Alwood lived in a trailer house at Timberland Mobile Home Park in Goodfield, Illinois, with her fiance and son, Kyle Alwood. Kyle also had 2 half-siblings, and Katie's grandmother, Catherine Murray, living with him. Katie's sister, Samantha, also lived just beside them and had a good relationship with her sister. She would often let her daughter, Rose, spend time with her cousins at Katie's home. They were like the perfect little family. A YouTube channel called Kyle Alwood contains videos from the Alwood residence, many of them recorded by Kyle himself. It shows the little boy to be a vibrant and enthusiastic child who is as mischievous as any typical 9-year-old boy. Even at such a tender age, he seemed fascinated by the idea of YouTube channels and their ownership.
Here's my mom, her channel. Here's Damon, his channel, Ariel's channel, my mama's channel, Rose's channel, and my channel. I left my mom's channel, my channel, down below in the description. So yeah. So here's my makeup. My mom did it, but I can't show you my mom.
On April 6th, 2019, just before midnight, everyone in the mobile home was sleeping. According to Katie, it started with the smell of something burning. After a few more moments, there was an explosion. The fire caught in the trailer home and began engulfing it. Kyle screamed and ran to the next door where his grandparents lived. Katie also managed to make it out alive, but her fiance, Jason, the babies, and the grandmother were stuck inside.
Katie was in the home when the fire broke out while most of the victims were sleeping, but was only able to save herself.
Katie tried her best to save her family. She was at the window trying to calm her children as they panicked and screamed while trapped inside the house. She kept apologizing to them for not being able to rescue them from the burning house.
I stood at the window and I told my kids I was sorry I couldn't save them. Mommy was right here and I loved them.
Katie could also hear her fiance screaming. She also let him know that she was right there and that she loved him. She was unable to save them, but she hoped that when her beloved family members departed this world, the last thing they remembered was how much she loved them.
So at least hopefully they heard that. You know, I told Jason I love him, I'll always love him.
After a while, the screaming stopped. Heartbroken, Katie realized that she'd lost her family.
And then something told me that they're gone.
The family members had passed away due to the heat and fumes. Kyle's brother and sister, Damon and Ariel Wall, were 2 and 1 years old. His cousin, Rose Alwood, was 2 years old. His mother's fiance, Jason Wall, was 34 years old. And Katie's grandmother, Catherine Murray, was 69 years old. Neighbors saw the incident taking place before their eyes and tried helping as much as they could. Mobile home park manager Sean Johnson said that he went over to help contain the fire, but the heat was so intense that he had to back off.
Around the corner, the house was pretty much fully engulfed. I did run down by the windows to see if I could see anything, but once I got down there, it was just, the heat was overwhelming. I just backed up and there's nothing you can do at that point.
A neighbor, Anna Marie Seibert, said she was woken up by her son the night of the incident. After an initial moment of confusion, he called 911. He and his father then went out to see if they could help anyone.
My husband and I lived next door. My son woke us up last night while he was calling 911. He said he heard popping and screaming and thought, something's not right. And he and my husband took off to try to see if they could help anyone get out.
Anna followed her son and husband into the burning home. She also called Sean to inform him about the fire.
I came over and did crowd control as I called Sean, let him know what was going on.
According to Sean, the fire department didn't delay and arrived at the scene immediately. This proves that there was no negligence from the authorities, and they tried everything in their power to bring the fire under control and save the trapped victims inside.
Fire department showed up seconds after I got here. And our fire department here is, you know, that these guys are awesome about their response time for a volunteer department. They're on the spot within 6 minutes.
Sean, who had worked in the park for 15 years, said that he had never seen anything like that before.
This has never happened the 15 years I've been out here. And something like this, you know, the community is out here. If there would have been something they could do to help, they would have been helping.
As Anna mentioned, the fire spread fast and strong before anyone could even grasp what was going on. But with the help of Sean, Anna planned to make their neighborhood safer. The strategy was to begin with several actions to fireproof the homes and the entire community in the mobile home park.
We're going to put together a community action plan. Sean and I are going to work on getting smoke alarms and fire extinguishers in the houses. We're going to reach out to hardware stores and fire department, see what they can help us with.
After the initial investigation, the prosecutors in Woodford County came to the conclusion that the fire was not an accident and was set on purpose. The incident then turned into a case of homicide.
It wasn't long before the authorities determined that this fire was set intentionally, ruling this case as a homicide investigation.
So what prompted Kyle to set the house on fire that day? According to his mother, Kyle was always playing with fire. Katie had to monitor him all the time in fear of an accident because he would start a fire without thinking of the consequences. In fact, she was so concerned about it that she had to fireproof the house.
Does he have a history with starting fires?
Yes. And I fireproofed my entire house.
But the worst happened nonetheless. Katie also divulged a delicate piece of information about her son. He had recently been diagnosed with schizophrenia, ADHD, and bipolar disorder, and was on medication. She believed that his mental illness might have instigated him to start the deadly fire on that fateful day.
He has schizophrenia.
And when was he diagnosed with schizophrenia?
Not even a month before the fire, and he was on medication.
But is her plea justified? Can bipolar disorder, ADHD, and schizophrenia be the reason behind Kyle's actions? Only a professional could have evaluated the mental condition of Kyle and confirmed whether he had any of those mental health issues, and if these conditions drove him to set the house on fire. Kyle's family was split on the decision of his punishment. On one hand, his mother pleaded on the basis of his mental health and age, but other family members disagreed. Kyle's mother believed that her son made an honest mistake. Considering his age and mental illness, she claimed that he should not be treated harshly and that he deserved a second chance.
He shouldn't be thrown away like a piece of garbage.
After the incident, people began to look at Kyle differently. Katie was deeply saddened by their behavior and believed that her son didn't have to go through this.
Everyone is looking at him like he's some kind of monster, but that's not who he is.
Katie was also outraged with the charges that the prosecutors pressed against her 9-year-old son, believing them to be too much. On top of that, she was upset that Kyle was getting too many death threats. Katie even had to move him to a relative's house to protect him.
Well, Katie Alwood tells us prosecutors have gone too far in charging her son, and because of multiple death threats, he's now having to live with other relatives. His mother says her son needs counseling, not punishment.
He needs help. He really does.
Katie acknowledged that her son committed a terrible crime. Having lost 2 children and her fiance, she understood the gravity of what her son had done. But she also said that Kyle shouldn't have to lose the chance at a normal life because of an accident.
People make mistakes, and that's what this is. Yes, it was a horrible tragedy, but it's still not something to throw his life away over.
Katie's sister, 21-year-old Samantha, was one of the people who were affected by Kyle's actions after losing her daughter, Rose. After the gruesome incident, the pictures and videos of Liv were all she had left of her.
She was just amazing. She got me out of bed. She made my days better, and it hurts her not being here.
Unlike her sister, she wants her nephew to be punished for taking away her only hope of living in this world. However, she didn't say this out of malicious intent. Even though she was mourning her daughter, she didn't have mindless hatred for Kyle. She wanted him to go to a detention center where his behavior could be reformed, and then he could be sent to prison when he was of the right age.
I think he should go somewhere until he's legal age to go to juvie. Then I think he should go to juvie, and then from juvie to prison.
She earnestly believed that a boy of Kyle's age knew what fire could do, and he understood the repercussions of his actions when he played with it.
At the end of the day, whether he meant to or not, he knew what fire did. He killed the only thing keeping me going. Some people find it harsh that I think that, but you also gotta understand how much we lost that night.
In another heartbreaking interview, Samantha mourned her daughter and spoke of the many milestones and life events she would never experience with Rose.
It hurts because I'm never gonna get to see her first day of school, her lose her first tooth. I don't get to see her go to high school and graduate, or walk her down the aisle, or be a grandma. I thought she was gonna be with me forever.
She also mourned the other family members she lost. Her brother-in-law, Jason, was like a father figure for Rose, even though he wasn't her father. The two had an amazing bond, which was reflected in the old videos Samantha had of the two.
That's Rose along with Jason Wall. And Samantha says that Jason was like a father to her daughter, even though he was her brother-in-law.
In fact, Jason had always wanted to be the protective role that most fathers had for their daughters.
He loved that little girl, and he always promised me that he would protect her.
But unfortunately, Jason Wall also became a victim of this tragic incident. Rescuers found Jason with Rose after they managed to control the fire.
That night, how they ended up finding them was right next to each other. So he protected her until the end. He was with her when I couldn't be, so she didn't go alone.
Soon after the incident, Samantha found that she only had a 5% chance of becoming a mother again. This added to the grief that she felt after losing Rose. Katie and Samantha's neighbor also mentioned in an interview that the charges brought against Kyle might have been a little too stern. As tragic as the incident was, she also believed that Kyle didn't have any malice towards his family members.
I think he was just playing. He didn't realize the implications or the consequences, and a bad tragedy came out of it. I believe he needs help and love.
She seemed hopeful about Kyle's future and believed that, like many other examples out there, the little boy could overcome his difficulties with a little nurturing and love.
Some children, even some adults today, had things happen when they were younger. They grew out of it, somebody nurtured them, and they have a very prosperous, productive adulthood now. So I believe they deserve a chance.
Despite losing her entire family to the tragedy, Katie Alwood forgave her son. She knew that his actions couldn't be undone. She wanted her son to understand the gravity of his actions, but as she'd lost too much already, and she didn't want to add another family member to that list.
I did lose, my family too, but I forgive him. I love him, no matter what.
When news media contacted the prosecutors, they announced that they would defend the charge of murder. But considering Kyle's age, he would likely face probation for at least 5 years. Katie was put on a gag order after she disclosed too much information about her son and the fire incident, and personal information related to her family to the media. She also lost her parental rights over the 9-year-old boy. Prosecutors didn't initially release what caused the fire or how Kyle started it, but they charged him with 5 counts of murder and arson. The Department of Children and Family Services investigated the matter 2 days after the incident. The agency took custody of Kyle immediately after the fire, and he was not with his mother after April 2019. Reportedly, this is not the first time Kyle has set something on fire. He was previously involved in other similar incidents. In fact, Kyle and Katie were both involved in fire incidents before this one. Alwood was previously involved in other fires, and Judge Charles Feeney made motions allowing for those to be discussed in trial. There are 3 fires Alwood is said to have been present for, which involve a mattress, recliner, and a car seat. According to their records, DCFS has had as many as 13 contacts with the Alwood family before this fire incident, and some of them dated back to when Kyle was an infant. This shows that Katie was negligent. She had already been having trouble with Kyle for many years, but she didn't take the necessary steps to correct his behavior. In most cases, the agency either referred Alwood to community services or determined allegations were unfounded after the family took some action to fix the situation. After this discovery, the prosecutors also listed Katie as a suspect. However, Katie was cooperative during the entire investigation. When investigating officers asked for Kyle's clothing items from Katie, she retrieved one from his grandparents' trailer and handed it over to the police. He was likely wearing it on the night of the fire incident. Nothing else of her behavior roused suspicion from them. Police also received a claim that a maintenance worker at the mobile home park might have supplied matches to the young boy, but nothing concrete was found in support of this claim, and it was dismissed. DCFS placed Kyle with a foster family as he awaited his verdict from the court. However, a lot of people have strongly condemned the prosecution's decision of charging a 9-year-old with murder. Constitutional law professor Gloria Brown Marshall called the decision an abuse of power.
It's difficult to understand how a 9-year-old would have the state of mind to know that their action would result in a death.
The Juvenile Justice Initiative also heavily criticized the decision. President of the initiative, Elizabeth Clark, said that she didn't understand why the little boy was charged with murder when state law didn't allow children under 13 years of age to be sentenced. She also mentioned that in recent years, law enforcement authorities have had access to more information on how a child's brain worked. The process helped them understand that a child convict might not have understood the consequences of their actions before committing the crime. So instead of choosing detention, they pick other alternatives to rectify the juvenile's behavior. They prescribe mental health care or medicines, counseling, hospitalization, or any other form of treatment to help the child. The same applies for a child with a neglective or abusive family. Amanda Moreno, a professor at the Erickson Institute, works with early childhood development. According to her, a child's brain doesn't understand the sense of time and consequence until late adolescence. They can't therefore weigh risks against rewards until that age. And this happens under the best case scenario. This is exactly why judges usually refrain from charging young children, because they weren't likely thinking of the consequences when they engaged in the alleged crimes. Even at 8 or 9, there's a lot that they don't know about being future-oriented, Moreno said. Just because they answer a question like, "Do you understand that if you set fire to something that someone could get hurt?" doesn't mean you understand what would happen in the future because of your specific actions, she said. Sense of time is an extremely late developing skill. This indicates that Kyle might have been fascinated with lighting fires, but he was too young to understand the consequences of a large fire at his house. This is why the prosecutor's decision was so unbelievable to a lot of officials. Woodford County State Attorney Gregory Minger replied to these criticisms, saying that the decision was not an easy one, but given the outcome of the incident, he had to make it because it was a 9-year-old, and all the way around, it was a tragedy. The first hearing for this case was held in October 2019. Reporters called it rare, as it's not often you see a 9-year-old being charged with so many counts of murder.
9-year-old Kyle Alwood sat and faced a judge inside this courthouse on Monday, his head barely visible above the back of his chair, his feet almost touching the ground as he heard the multiple murder charges against him.
The little boy didn't understand most of the terms, making this session a tragic ordeal. The judge, Charles Feeney, had to repeat and explain several legal terms to him multiple times.
It's important to point out that Judge Charles Feeney had to explain on multiple circumstances the words arson and alleged because he didn't understand what those words were.
Kyle continued to look confused as he didn't understand some of the words as well. His attorney, Peter Dulski, would then interject the proceedings to clear his confusions. A moment later, the boy's attorney, Peter Dulski, spoke up. "Your Honor, I apologize. He told me he doesn't know what alleged means." The judge explained it to the boy until he nodded and then spoke that he understood. Shortly after, the defense attorney interrupted again, telling the judge that the boy wanted to know what arson was. The Journal-Star reported, "You knowingly set a fire," the judge told him. If convicted, Kyle was set to be on probation for at least 5 years, or up to 21 years of age. This would include counseling and testing his mental health and physical fitness. The hearing, set to take place in April 2020, was conducted over an internet video call because of the pandemic. Reportedly, Kyle was doing great under state supervision and was performing well academically. The counseling sessions were also helping him. Feeney praised the foster parents and state child welfare staff for the awesome job they're doing on behalf of the child. Improvements to the boy's overall well-being includes his overall outlook on life, said Feeney. Kyle's father requested to meet his son every day, which the court granted and allowed 4 hours per day of unsupervised visits. However, he couldn't take Kyle somewhere alone. Daniel Herod, lawyer for Kyle's father, informed the media that the state wanted Kyle to stay with his father after the hearing and until he received his final verdict. But for that, his father would have to take a parenting skill evaluation. Kyle's father had already taken the test, but the results were delayed due to the pandemic. Based on the outcome of the evaluation, the court would decide his living arrangements at the next hearing in October. Kyle was also supposed to complete a health evaluation to confirm that he could stand trial. However, after a physical examination in July 2020, Judge Feeney concluded that Kyle was unfit to stand trial.
The news comes after the judge read the fitness evaluation completed by a doctor. Both the defense and the state are requesting a discharge hearing.
New information appeared during the December 2021 hearing. Kyle's attorney requested not to use evidence found from the burnt trailer home, as it was already removed from the park 12 days after the incident. He also argued that there was no need to use the evidence found on the child's shirt because there was no warrant to obtain it. However, both of these arguments were overruled. Judge Charles Feeney disagreed, saying the boy's mother had the authority to hand over the shirt of her minor son, making a search warrant unnecessary. The trailer was deemed a health and safety hazard, said Feeney, and was removed after evidence was collected. That evidence still exists, noted the judge. As of 2023, Kyle Alwood's fate has yet to be determined. The tragedy was a wake-up call, not only for the neighborhood in Goodfield, but the entire country. According to Katie's neighbor, Anna Marie, the families of Goodfield took lessons from this incident and understood the implications of directing the children in the right direction. They're also teaching them the true value of life.
We're going to find ways to make the community safer. We're going to learn from this tragedy.
Although no amount of caution and preventative measures can bring the 5 precious lives back, they can ensure that no other family falls victim to such deadly fire incidents. And they can get a good night's sleep knowing that help is ready to arrive if the worst happens. 3 young lives were taken before they could cross the age of 5. Kyle Alwood himself is a juvenile and awaiting his final verdict. Whatever the outcome is, his life will forever be marked with the memories of an incident he was too young to understand. Although this experience is traumatic for a 9-year-old boy, with the help of good therapists and guidance in juvenile detention centers, he too can turn his life around and can become the person his family would undeniably be proud of. Do you think this unfortunate event could have been avoided if Kyle's mother had monitored him better? Do you believe that mental health and treatment for mental illness should be more prioritized, especially in the case of children? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel.